All good. Just to start off, anyway, how you been keeping busy during the lockdown periods?
Well, I've been busy, but not with the usual performances. I mean, I've done a few performances with Robbie Long, which is a duo, which I've been doing for quite a few years now, and that's been great. There's just only a few of those. I stopped doing school shows, which I do about 200 to 300 every year, altogether from in early March, and really won't start till April next year. But I haven't got the junk band hasn't been playing, but I did release the CD because we just wanted to keep the band in and up there. But the junk band is basically gone to ground for the moment. Hopefully,
yeah. Is there any sign on the horizon that live gigs are going to open up again?
Well, it's starting to look good, as with all the things that are going on. It's just hopefully. But you never know when the next wave of comes for COVID. That's been a problem all along. So I'll just have to cool my heels. Really, I'm hoping that I'll be back on the road at some point. But at the moment, I'm just taking it easy. But I did move house up to Katoomba in the Blue Mountains.
Oh,
beautiful
nice.
house. We moved to a beautiful house and learning about gardening. I've never done any gardening in my life, just about. So plenty of things to do.
So were you tentative at all about putting out a CD in the middle of a pandemic when you're unable to get out there and promote it?
I did discuss it with the band and various people about that, and I thought it was better to put it out, while in this situation when we've got the time, and I also financed it kind of basically myself. So I was a bit reluctant. I wasn't quite sure which way to jump, really, but given that I've had more time, I've actually been able to release a children's album as well, about a themed album about reduce, reuse, recycle, which I recorded a few years ago, but I hadn't put it out. So the COVID thing is, even though it's had a lot of negative effects, it's also had some positive because I had the time to get a new website together, get two new CDs out there, and there's somebody else, a filmmaker, wants to make a documentary about me and Jim. So all those sort of things kind of work, and I've got a beautiful house that I'm trying to, I had to unpack and all that. So it's had its pluses and minuses.
It's funny, I've spoken to other people who have released albums this year during the pandemic, and they've mentioned that the response to their albums has been stronger than they expected, and they put it down to the fact that people have had a little bit more time on their hands and have used that time to seek out new music to fill their day. Have you found that too?
Maybe that's true, but no, I haven't noticed that. I've just had, mind you, I got a really good review from Sydney Morning Herald Age from Bruce Elder, wrote a great review about the album.
I saw that,
which was great. And that sort of made me happy, and a few other people have kind of reviewed it on radio and that, which has been lovely, and they've said nice things. But I haven't noticed like a new, I probably not in like my audience is a lot smaller and kind of select than the general sort of thing. So I don't actually follow whether people are madly getting into music more than they ever did before.
It's probably a perfect album release for 2020. It's been a real downer of a year for all of us. So this is a fun distraction, I guess, from all the gloom and doom.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I thought the timing was good for it in that respect. It's a fairly, it's a song. It's an album that basically, there's some serious topics there, but they're done with a sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek kind of approach to them. But yeah, there's definitely serious issues on the album, and we'll talk about obsolescence and talking about animals killed in the bush from the bushfires, and but not in a kind of really heavy, gloomy kind of way, and also about social media, the emptiness of social media and the emptiness of the social media economy, with all that. I find all that. And so, there's the serious issues there, and there's just a whole lot of frivolity as well. But I feel like it's been a good move to do the album, release it, now. It's been great.
It's been 22 years since the first national junk band album. So of all your bands through the years, this is the one that's remained active the longest. Do you put that down to anything in particular?
I guess we get a bit older and a bit more mature, but I enjoy working with it. And I'm not really sure why it's lasted so long, but everyone seems to like each other and we all respect each other. I mean, they're all very good musicians, so I'm probably musically the weakest link, but my thing is to sort of, is more a performer out front, and I'm a reasonably good singer, but musically, I'm a bit of a pedestrian on that one.
I remember last time we spoke, you mentioned that the junk band is the band that Captain Matchbox probably would have evolved into had it stayed together. And I reckon that's become more and more evident with each album that you've put out under this moniker. Many of the tracks from this album could have been lifted off one of the great Captain Matchbox albums in the past. Do you see that connection still?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Yeah, I do. I find it as a natural, a connection between the two. I did have the Conway brothers hiccups in Sydney for a few years, and that went really well, but it was more of a jazz bow kind of feel, but still had a matchboxy kind of thing about it. But the junk band is the kind of band that I always wanted to get. But what happened with Matchbox in the long run was it went a bit more rock and roll, which wasn't my choice, but it was other people in the band's choice, so that's where it went. And I even though I kind of enjoyed doing it, I felt really comfortable with more the old-timey junk thing and writing songs around in that sort of idiom. But there's a definite connection between the National Junk Band and the Whoopee Band.
There's got to be a story behind the title, Reality is an Illusion.
Well, there's a song about reality is an illusion, and there was some fabulous. I'd crack a lot of jokes in my shows, and there's some few jokes that were lines that I stole from Albert Einstein. One was that reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. Another one was there's two things that are infinite. One is the universe, and one is ignorance. And then he said, but I'm not sure about the universe, which I love that quote. And so there's a few other things. Just the fact that Einstein, relative, the thing about relativity too, which was about how we're basically even. I find it amazing that we're on a planet that's hurtling through space at thousands of k's per second and spinning around, and we stand still. We think we're standing still, and we're not. Mm-hmm. So that was a thing that possibly inspired the idea for reality as an illusion. It's just I just love that kind of idea that we're none of us are standing still, even if we're lying in a bed.
The original songs on the album are all co-writes with other members of the band. Was the writing process pretty much the same with each other member that you wrote with? Look,
I'm a lyricist. I mean, I write music, but I prefer to use musicians who are better at music than me. So I like collaborating. I do like whenever I've worked for everything I've ever written, I've liked collaborating. Occasionally I write a song by myself, but it's usually got some sort of, derivative in some sort of root music. So, for instance, Reality is an Illusion, the song I wrote by myself, but it's based on sort of early jug band songs and things like that. So, I wrote another song about, which is called Rearranging the Deck Chairs on the Titanic. And that was also based in early jug band songs, but it wasn't the same. But that was the inspiration out of it, and I used some of the chord patterns that you would use in that to make the song. But basically, working with people who are really good with music, which my band is, it's fun to work with them because they come up with things that I never would have thought of in terms of the melody and direction of things. Yeah.
Of course, Brother Jim is in there as well with his unmistakable harmonica. How's he doing these days?
Well, he's good for a sick man, in short. But the MS, multiple sclerosis that he has, he's had it for now 36 years. Basically, his hand kind of works, And that's about it. His head works and his mind and his mouth and all that, but his rest of his body is absolutely stuffed. And but I was living in the same street as him until I moved to Katoomba, but we still have a lot together. We go through a lot together anyway. This is probably could be his last, proper recording, because he has even trouble holding a harmonica these days. And even if you use a rack, he doesn't like using a rack, because it gives him, he has trouble even with that. So, so this could be, but he played beautifully on this album, and I was really pleased. Yeah. He guested on most of the Junk Band CDs. He's done some work on it. I always like to work with him no matter what he does. I mean, he moved on with the Backsliders and had a huge career with that, and then he had his own band, the Big Wheel, and that went really well. But he's now at the pointy end of his illness, so he's hanging in. Yeah, he's good. And he played beautifully on Please Don't Talk About Me When I'm Gone, that we really kind of chose that song for him to play on.
Yeah. Well, if this is his last recording, he's gone out in style.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if it is, but having said that, it's unlikely he'll do too much more. Yeah. The good news for him and me is that there was a book written about it, Jim and I. It was released a few years ago and gone really well. And a filmmaker from Melbourne has read it and wants to make a documentary on it. So that was a nice thing to happen. So we were going, wow, that's great. Jim was really pleased, though.
So is that still in just the very early planning stages at this stage?
Oh yeah, it hasn't. They're planning to do it next year, some like February or March next year. They're planning to start, but they asked whether we'd do it. And I actually wasn't sure whether Jim would be happy about that, but he was more than happy, so that's good. Oh, we're doing it.
And Jim is not the only family member to appear on the album. The track Positively opens with a recording featuring your grandfather, Manny Aarons.
That's right. Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad you've listened to the album.
I certainly have.
All right. Manny Aarons, on my father's side, his father and all his brother, the uncles and aunties and things like that were all vaudeville people, and so I wanted to sort of pay some sort of tribute to him, but it wasn't until a friend of ours who's related to Mick Fleming, who's in Matchbox. He came up with a joke about an old vaudevillian who someone asked him whether vaudeville would ever make it back again, come back again, and he said, Positively. That was his pun, as in Tivoli Theatre. And so I thought that was great. So then I turned that into a song, basically. But I also got a recording of my grandfather, who ended up, he was in vaudeville, but he ended up at the State Theatre in Sydney playing the Wurlitzer, and he was called the Wizard of the Wurlitzer, Manny Aarons. But I was born Aarons. I wasn't born Conway. My father was called Conway Aarons, but he changed his name. Everyone called him Jim. He changed his name to Jim Conway. But not my brother, but my father. And so I would have been Mick Aarons, but I didn't. I'm Mick Conway instead. Anyway,
what was the source of? Where did that recording actually come from? The one that opens Positively.
I think. I'm not really sure. I had a whole series. I translated a whole lot of tape. There were tape recordings, and I didn't quite know where that had come from. I listened to a whole lot. Some of them were damaged and almost unplayable, but it may have come from an old. I mean, it's got crackles on it and everything, so I'm not quite sure is the answer to that. But 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 the good thing about it was he names himself. And then he plays the organ, so that was just a little intro, and it fitted in musically quite well with the style of the song. Which originally, when I wrote the song, I wasn't thinking about putting Manny on the recording, but then Marcus Holden, who produced the album, asked me whether I had any recordings of Manny, and I did. So that was fun. Yeah, because I'm chuffed to be able to do that. On my mother's side, they were all singers, so there was. My uncle was a famous opera singer in Europe and Britain, and his brother, another, was a famous musical singer in Sydney. I'm kind of honouring my forebears.
Talk about the front cover art too, which is taken from a photograph by Greg Waite. Can you tell us the significance of that one?
Oh, that is a story in itself, but it's a story that I didn't know when I chose. Greg Waite's done some photographs of us before. He's a fabulous, and he actually his forte is filming or photographing artists, visual artists, painters, and whatever. And he's had a big connection with Martin Sharp. And the first gig that Captain Matchbox ever did was at the Yellow House in Sydney in about 1970, and it was like a art happening, like an environmental art house. So every room in the house was an art gallery. You could walk in, but every room was done by various artists and special artists who would, some very famous ones, in some sort of particular tribute or environment that they would make each room. And on that room, the one that I chose as the cover is a particular room that Martin Sharp himself had painted a tribute to Hokusai, the wave, Hokusai's wave, and on the door. And there was various other things done by George Gittos and Brett Whiteley, etc. Anyway, Martin painted this, and the next morning when he got up after painting it, he saw the froth on the wave had been turned into sperm drops, and he was outraged and really upset. So he painted back the wave to look like a wave again and not like sperm drops. And then he got back up the next day. He came back and it was back to being sperm. So he got so angry that he picked up a hammer and he figured out who had been Brett Whiteley who'd done it. And he threw a hammer at Brett Whiteley, as history goes, fortunately he missed, and so otherwise the face of Australian art may have changed entirely if he'd connected. But anyway, he missed. So that is the room that got which of course. Greg Waite took a photo of the room, and it's perfect for reality as an illusion because it's hard, trying to work out in the room whether which part is the room and which part is a painting. It is quite tricky when you look at it. So I just thought, well, that's great cover. I mean, he showed it to me, and I thought that's great. But he'd forgotten about it. But then I found out later from a friend that story, and Greg confirmed it. And unfortunately, what we can't do is confirm it with Brett Whiteley or Martin Sharp because they're no longer with us. But anyway, but various people have confirmed it, and so I believe it's true, but I can't prove it.
Like the Beatles cover on there, the song Because. A lower profile Beatles song, I guess, that not many would be all that familiar with. What made you choose that one from the catalogue?
I turned up at a party where they were playing music in the backyard, and they wanted me to play Saw, and they started playing Because. Somebody really liked the Beatles and was playing Because, and they asked me to play, and when I played it, I thought, I just picked it up, and just because you can kind of work on, you can get a melody fairly easily on the Saw. And I thought, this is a great song for Saw, and then that just put the bug in my head. And often on all our junk band recordings, so we always try and do something that's out of our comfort zone, and that was out of our comfort zone. But at the same time, lyrically, I'm a man. I love cryptic crosswords, and I love puns and word plays, and that song is full of word plays and really corny puns. So I love the lyrics, and but also musically, it's quite tricky. It's quite different to anything I've ever attempted to play or sing. So the band were into that. They were like a challenge. So every album has always had usually a few musical challenges, and that was one.
Just in general terms,
it's a great song. I love it.
Yeah, it came up really well. Is there a certain criteria you do work to when seeking out songs to cover and give it the junk band treatment?
Something that fits what we're like, but no, I always like some lyrics are always important to me. So I always want something I hate performing, trite lyrics. I just find that tedious. So I always like lyrics, but I also love a really strong melody. and taking a chance on something. I did. The junk band years ago recorded "Baby You Can Drive My Car,"
Right.
and we recorded we did as a duet with Judy Backhouse, who was in the band at the time. Unfortunately, she passed on as well some years later. But we did a duet with that, which did suit the junk band kind of thing. But it's just a quirky. I like songs that are quirky with a strong melody and a good lyric. I guess that's, if there's a criteria, in short, that's it.
I love the song Sydney, Steak and Kidney. Being a Melbourne boy originally yourself, but you've been up there long enough, I'm sure, to write about Sydney with some authority. How much tongue was planted in cheek writing that one?
Well, I've been a Spike Jones fan for years, but since I was a kid, I used to have Spike Jones and the City Slicker CDs, and they always set up the first verse with a beautiful, sweet kind of tribute, and then they'd tear it apart after that. This is a little bit like that, not quite, but lyrically it's like that. So I set up this beautiful thing about Sydney, and then go into, it's full of sharks and shysters and used car salesmen. So we did actually. I wrote that song with Marcus a few years ago for at Sydney Festival. They wanted songs about Sydney, etc. So we wrote it for that, and no one stopped us doing it. So that was good.
Good, yeah.
Wasn't quite sure because it's. But anyway, it's. I do like. I have lived in Sydney. I was born in Sydney, but I moved to Melbourne when I was a little kiddie, and then grew up in Melbourne. And I feel myself, even now, I still think I'm a Melbourne person, really. But I've been in Sydney now longer than I lived in Melbourne, and I love and hate Sydney, and that's, I guess, really what that song reflects, without being too serious about it. I just take the piss and the mickey out of Sydney as well as loving it.
Mm-hmm. I was browsing on YouTube the other day, and I stumbled across a movie-length video of you teaching us how to make musical instruments out of just about anything. Tell us about putting that together.
Oh, that's gone on my website, yeah. I did it as a book and booklet and the CD a number of years ago, but I couldn't. I was happy. I've been doing a show called Rubbish for many years, which is about reduce, reuse, recycle in schools, and then I thought I'd do a CD about that, and I thought people would be interested in that and whatever, but I couldn't get any backers, and I had no money to back it. So that's another COVID thing. So I couldn't sell that, and I couldn't sell this record that I made, The Amazing Rubbish. So, but I was able now in the COVID days of having all this time just to put it. I checked with people who helped me make it. We all just said, look, just put it up there and get it out there. So my whole shtick, really, or big part of what I do is making music from things that aren't meant to be musical instruments. So I was amazed by things like that. So that's the tradition of jug band music, I guess. So the jug, the washboard, paper and comb, junk kind of instruments, garbage bins, and all that sort of stuff. And I played the saw. They're things are not intended for other purposes, but they turn into musical instruments. And so I over the years I've collected a whole lot of folk instruments. So most of them I didn't invent; they were just around, and I just saw them and thought, well, drinking straw flutes and rubber glove bassoons. I saw kids doing that at festivals and thought, I can do that. That'd be great. And so I've included them in my shows about recycling, and for 15, 20 years now. So we made a booklet and a video, and I've just put it all on the website, and I'm very happy to have it up there because I just thought I should get it out there. It's another COVID. There's another COVID project.
I guess it was pretty much part of the blueprint for the National Junk Band, wasn't it? Making instruments out of anything.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah. These are a bit more, like home, for kids and easy. Kids can easily play these things. So, some of them sound pretty terrible, but they all got a good set, some sort of musicality to them, but nevertheless. So they're fun, and I've been fascinated. I was taught by an Indigenous person to play gum leaf, and I love that. I just think, wow, this is incredible. So, gum leaves and all that sort of just things that are not, you wouldn't expect to be musical instruments. Just it's a joy to me when they make incredible sounds. And at the moment, I mean, the musical saw is the thing. It's an instrument of destruction, and yet it sounds so heavenly when you play it. So
it does. Yeah.
I love that. I love that dichotomy or whatever it is.
And also online, I stumbled across an interesting character known as TV Man. Is he based on anyone in particular?
Well, I had that came from originally a school show that I did called TV or Not TV, which became obsolete, and I haven't done it for many years now, where I, taught about kids could do things other than watch TV was the original idea of it. But the prop, I've kept the prop, and I've got big teeth for him, and he's this sort of schmarmy TV man, and the junk band has been doing these sort of shows called Vaudeville in Sydney at this Camelot, this sort of venue in Sydney, which is a fabulous venue, and we do these shows, and it changed the show each time, but we have recurring characters, and one of them was TV Man, who, because it's called Vaudeville, we blame TV for killing vaudeville, so he's this guy who killed vaudeville, so that's his character, but he, at the same time I can wear the TV, have the big teeth, and play the ukulele at the same time, so I can do little songs, and that's a bit of fun. And I did I think recently I did a song, Ignoring Social Distancing, a song which I wrote for the COVID thing, which was a bit of a piss take of, I'm definitely for keeping social distancing, but the people who ignore it and all that, I just took the mickey out of that. So that was good for TV. TV Man, yes, TV Man is a recurring theme. He will appear again.
As I'm sure you will in 2021. Any particular plans for next year?
No, nothing certain at all. I'm hoping to go back to schools because I need to live, and I like doing schools. That's great, but it's hard work. It's really hard work. Mm-hmm. And I'm still doing Robbie Long, and I'm hoping to get a few festivals next year if they are allowed to appear. And I'm hoping the junk band will, reappear at some point too. So because I haven't got all the members at the moment anyway. They've all kind of gone by the by, but just because there's nothing going on anyway. No, and having economically a band is impossible at the moment. Well, for us it is anyway. But hopefully, those sort of things. But I haven't making this film. If that happens next year, that'd be great. But I'm getting to be an old man now. I'm about to turn 70 in February, so I might. I can't bring myself to say the word retire. It's really hard, but because you never really do when you're a performer. But I'm quite happy to take I'll be a little less busy than I've been anyway.
No worries. Well, we hope somewhere in there you can squeeze in a trip back home to Melbourne. We'd certainly love to see you.
I'd love to come down to Victoria and Melbourne and everywhere. I love Victoria still, and I've got so many friends down there, whom I haven't seen for practically the whole year.
Mm. Well, congrats on this album. It's been a wonderful antidote to a gloomy year for us. It's most enjoyable indeed. Thoroughly recommended, and we'll be playing this in full on the night when we put this interview to air.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this. This is great. Thank you.
No, great talking to you again. I'll let you go and enjoy another day in the wonderful Blue Mountains.
Okay, beautiful.
Good on you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.